Hi, this is Jen Rubin, and this is Jen Rubin's Green Room. Today, we have a special show. It is about the debate. It's all about the debate from beginning to end. So, first of all, what is Donald Trump going to do? Well, I do suspect he's going to come out somewhat medicated. If you remember all the sniffling and the snorting and the nose wiping, I do not think that that was simply a cold that he had last time around. So I expect he will be somewhat juiced up. And of course, by accusing the president of being juiced up, he is doing what he always does, which is projecting. So he will come out. He will not have the ability to interrupt. He won't have the ability to play to the crowd, but he's going to lie. He's going to lie over and over and over again because his supporters simply don't care. And at this point, I'm not sure Donald Trump can even tell the difference between a lie and something, the truth. I think the truth is just a figment of the mainstream media's imagination in his mind. So he's going to come out and lie. He's going to say he had the best economy ever. He didn't. He's going to say that he was the best friend that Ukraine ever had. He's going to say that the country was great 4 years ago. He was going to say that he single-handedly solved the COVID crisis. On and on and on. He is immune to facts because reality doesn't matter to him. He is going to be aggressive. He's going to be obnoxious. He won't be able to interrupt, but I think he will be clownish, probably not completely over the top, unless, and this is my hope, the president baits him. How could he bait him? Well, imagine the following. He begins the debate by saying, "Hey, Donald, why don't you tell us about that story about the shark and the battery?" In other words, invite him to repeat one of his ridiculous, rambling, incoherent blubberings, because Donald Trump, of course, thinks he's a genius. And when he was asked about that very conversation, he tried to repeat it, and it came out even worse the second time. So he can certainly invite Trump to repeat one of his ridiculous stories. He can also go right for the jugular. Trump fears more than anything else being a loser. And he can repeat, the president can, over and over again. He lost in 2020, he lost in 2020, and he can repeat, he lost in every trial he's ever had to sit through. He lost twice to E. Jean Carroll. He lost in the business falsification records criminal trial. And in fact, he's going to be sentenced on July 11th. Perhaps Biden should wish him well and give him the old thumbs up. Hope you stay out of jail, pal. He can also, of course, bring up the falsification of the value of his business records, a civil case that the state of New York brought. And in all of these, he can point out the obvious, that Trump is a liar and a phony. He makes himself out to be something he's not, because really, he's a loser. And coming back to that again and again may really set Trump into orbit. Other than provoking Trump and letting Trump be Trump, what does Biden really need to do? I've suggested a few things that would certainly help. And by the way, no one on either side of this should get their hopes up that there's going to be some moment, some strike of lightning where everybody looks at the debate and says, of course we can't vote for Trump. He's insane, because his supporters won't care. And they will begin immediately, if he does break down in some fashion, to make all kinds of wild accusations that Biden had a microphone in his back pocket, that he was on drugs, that CNN gave him the questions. They'll try it all. So get out of your head that he is going to make some kind of magical breakthrough that will convince the crazies that Trump really is insane. So put that off to the side. But there are some things I think worth pounding home for Biden. And the first is over and over and over again on abortion. Donald Trump appointed 3 radical extremists to the Supreme Court, and he got what he wanted. They took away women's rights. She no longer has the right to make decisions about her own body. And those bans in various states, as the vice president correctly says, those are Donald Trump abortion bans. And he needs to repeat that over and over again, making clear that the Republicans are going after IVF, are going after contraception. And the notion that Donald Trump would not sign an abortion ban that landed on his desk is absurd. These people are the ones who brought him to the dance. Republicans, if they control the Congress and could pass such a thing, will expect him to do it. And of course he would sign it. And that means voters in blue states and purple states will be out of luck as well. It will also help Biden to explain in some detail the real damage that Trump has done. After all, aside from the women he's personally attacked, his policies, his court now sees that women are bleeding out in operating rooms. They are having children who then die because of some fetal abnormality. We see that infant deaths are way up in the state of Texas. That's because rather than terminate the pregnancy, they are carrying them to term, whereupon those babies suffer a slow, painful death. That's what Donald Trump has done. He's cruel, he's indifferent, he thinks it's working beautifully, but it's not. This is what we get with Donald Trump. So abortion has to be high on the list of things that he reminds voters about. Second thing is, I think he does need to do a little bit of before, after. His economy is much better than Donald Trump's. Donald Trump has repeated the lies about the economy so often and so many times that people have come to believe it. But in fact, employment has been at a historic low, 40 months or so of 4% or less in unemployment. Inflation has been tamed. Last month, it was at 0. He has done what Donald Trump could not, which is create a massive infrastructure project that is creating jobs around the country. He has revived manufacturing, on and on and on. And he's got to, again, make the case Donald Trump lost. He lost jobs. He lost the preeminence of the United States in the global economy. He was a loser, and he'll make us losers again. So reiterating their relative economic records, I think, is important. And there are some voters, particularly those who are sort of country club Republicans, who say, oh, we can't vote for Biden because the economy, the economy, the economy. Well, the economy is awful under the Trump regime, and it will be awful again. We just had 16 Nobel Prize winning economists say his plan is a recipe for gigantic inflation, and Biden should bring that up. So yes, abortion and the economy. What else should he bring up? I think he's got to level with the American people and say this would be a disaster, not only for America, but for the world. This guy kisses up to every dictator around the world. Because Trump is such an egomaniac, he allows these dictators to flatter him, to cajole him, to manipulate him, so that he would be willing to give up Europe to Vladimir Putin. He would be able to call the dictator of North Korea his friend, on and on. And I think he's got to make clear that not only is this ridiculously dangerous, but it's really an embarrassment. Trump was a joke on the world stage. Remember at the UN, they laughed at him? Well, they were right to laugh at him. He wants to destroy NATO. He has no concept of who's on what side and which side we should be on. So I think he's got to make clear that if you believe in a strong America, you should vote for Biden. And yes, he should bring up all of those slurs that Donald Trump delivered against the military. They're suckers, they're losers. Remember, he didn't go to a battlefield in Europe because it was raining and his hair would get mussed. Trump has denied it. He calls John Kelly a liar. That was the general and his chief of staff who related those comments. Let him call John Kelly a liar, and the next day, Biden can go to John Kelly and say, would you please make a statement and remind us of what Donald Trump said? So I think coming down hard on Trump's views of the military, his inability to conduct anything approaching sane foreign policy really needs to be on the list. And I think last but not least, he's got to level with people about what Donald Trump wants to do. In fact, he put it in writing, or his aides put it in writing, because Donald Trump is incapable of, I think, either reading or writing. But you have a 900-page document, the 2025 project. And Biden should tick off not all of what's in there, because it would be impossible to do it within the confines of a debate. It's a 900-page plus debate. But he should give a few of the highlights, including his plan to use the military to suppress civilian dissent. That doesn't sound so positive. His plan to replace experts, objective people, career civil servants with his cronies. So you will have his cronies telling us what the weather is going to be like. He won't even need to bring out his Sharpie. He will have the weather department that will be stock full of his cronies. He will stock EPA with such people. And so we will not be able to tell fact from fiction. It will be Donald Trump up and down in any government office, in any government decision making. He will totally corrupt the operation of government. Doesn't sound good, does it? Well, the 2025 plan also makes clear they're going to go after mifepristone. It also makes clear they are going to go after IVF. And they will go after certain forms of birth control. It's all in writing. Let Donald Trump deny it. And then again, the next day, the president can point to chapter and verse and point out all of these things that Donald Trump is up to. And when he says he's going to deport 11 million people, what does that really mean? He's going to have a massive military operation. He is planning on building detention camps. I'm not making this up. You can go look it up. Detention camps. And do we really think he's only going to be able to snare people who are undocumented? Or is he going to pull in a lot of Spanish-speaking people who have green cards, who are legal to be here, even who are American citizens? We've seen this before. And in the coming weeks, I am going to bring to you a number of authors, a number of historians who have documented similar episodes in American history. You may remember something called the Palmer Raids. That was an episode in our deep, dark past in the 19-teens and 20s when the Attorney General sent out massive dragnets, pulling out socialists, pulling out people who were pacifists, pulling out people who he simply believed were not American citizens, rounding them up, throwing them in prison, getting sympathetic judge to sentencing them for a number of years. It was a nightmare. In other words, don't think it can't happen here. Not only did we see what Donald Trump was capable of, but we have a precedent for it. And you know who assisted the Attorney General way back when with the Palmer raids? The man who cut his teeth on it was J. Edgar Hoover. That's what we're looking at, a surveillance state, a tyranny in which one has to show allegiance to Donald Trump or you will be in danger. Your business will be in danger. Your personal liberty will be in danger. That's what Donald Trump has in mind. That's why he envies those dictators around the world, because he wants to be just like them. He sees them as powerful. He sees them as respected. Remember, he has the autocrat from Hungary, Viktor Orban, to his Mar-a-Lago retreat. Well, there you go. That's his idol. That's the kind of guy he's going to pal around with, and that's the sort of person he's going to emulate. So we have all of those things. But I also think there are a few things that would give maybe even some Republicans pause. Consider this. The next president will likely have one or more Supreme Court seats. They will probably have several hundred lower court seats. Can you imagine 100 or more Eileen cannons on the federal bench? What was the crown jewel of our democracy, the federal bench, will become a joke. It will be used to torment his opponents. It will be used as an escape hatch for his cronies. And he will, in fact, corrupt the American justice system. He's done it since the beginning of the indictments. We've seen him attack judges. We've seen him attack jurors. We've seen him attack court personnel. He is a danger to the courts and to the court system because that's a center of power that he can control, he thinks, and that he can sic his minions on. It was interesting. I spent a little time the other day going back to look at the filings on the gag orders, both in the New York case, where the gag order was partially lifted, by the way, today, and in the January 6th case. And the prosecutors there and the judges who issued those orders go through chapter and verse of the sorts of threats that befell people in Donald Trump's past. Yes, bomb threats, death threats, doxing, harassment. That's what Donald Trump unleashes on his fellow Americans. He's already done it. Can you imagine what he's going to be doing when he has the power of the presidency? So when you talk about the rule of law, it sounds all nice and abstract and philosophical, but it means wall-to-wall corruption. It means his guys go free and innocent people suffer because of it. And you may remember, of course, that he has promised to pardon the January 6th criminals. Many of these people are in prison for having assaulted police officers, for having committed acts of violence, of vandalism. He wants to let them go free. So if there were ever a time to turn to Donald Trump and say, you guys are not the law and order party, we are. By the way, crime is at a near 50-year low. Despite Donald Trump's flapping and complaining and whining and hysteria, yes, it's lower under President Biden by far than it was under Trump. But we're looking at a perversion of the rule of law should Donald Trump return to power. We're looking at a scary dystopian future. So I think those are a few points that he should make. But I also think he has an opportunity, the president, just to be himself. He's a pretty witty guy. If you've seen any of those stakeouts or you've seen him in a State of the Union, he has the ability to crack a joke, to make a comeback, to get in a dig. He is rather quick on his feet. He knows a lot. And although physically he may seem elderly, a little stiff, he really is with it. And I think he should, in a self-deprecating way, wish that his opponent had a very happy 78th birthday, reminding people he's just a few years younger, but also demonstrate that, of course, he's with it. He spends his time negotiating with foreign leaders. He spends his time doing deals in which the Republicans come away with their pockets picked. Of course, he's on the ball. And hopefully he can demonstrate that, at least for 90 minutes, to those people who are paying attention. And that is why the drumbeat has already begun. He's going to be drugged. He's going to be helped by CNN. That's why you have this run-up to the debate in which Donald Trump is making excuses. Because somewhere in that muddled brain, somewhere in that warped personality, he knows that President Biden is not feeble. He knows that the person who has trouble getting out an English sentence is not Biden, it's him. And he knows that if he actually has to be serious and speak for a couple minutes, which is the length of these answers, on a policy matter, he's going to be sunk. Trump does not have the intellectual bandwidth to talk intelligently and coherently about anything. And that's really what the debate comes down to. It's not going to be a matter of scoring debate points. It's not going to be, I think, a argument over factual issues because Trump is not going to stick to the facts. It's going to be a general sense that voters will have coming away from that Biden is on the ball, he cares about ordinary people, and Donald Trump is a whack job, which he is. So if that comes across in some fashion, I think the president will have succeeded. But remember, we have months to go in this election. And consider where we were just a few months ago and how much has already changed. Really, the president, ever since the State of the Union, has been on the ball, and he has been improving his position in the polls, if you like polls, but more importantly, really going for the jugular, really getting the message out on many of these issues I've just talked about. And so when you compare where the campaign stood 3 or 4 months ago and how Democrats felt about it then, and where things are now, when even the New York Times has to admit, oh, the race is essentially tied. Remember all those months of he's behind, he's losing? It's irrelevant because other stuff happened and Biden performed well. So don't think that this is going to be either predictive or the final word on the election. Because in just a couple of weeks, Donald Trump is going to go to his convention. And that convention is going to look like a Nuremberg rally, I guarantee it. These people are nuts. The nuttiness is going to come through. The threats, the really insane conspiracies, that's all going to be on view. And frankly, the Democrats should be encouraging Americans to watch it because they'll get really an earful. And then we'll have the Olympics. People will go on summer vacation. Not much will happen. And coming back at the very end of July, beginning of August, you're going to have mid-August, you're going to have the President of the United States accept the nomination for the presidency and deliver serious comments. He's going to have serious people appear at the convention. And maybe he'll have a few surprises. Maybe Liz Cheney might show up. Maybe Taylor Swift would show up. I don't have any inside information on this. But just to put it out there, stuff changes. Things happen. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump has yet to name his vice president. So we're going to see that too. Listen, Kamala Harris has taken a lot of flack from a lot of people. I spent the better part of last week following her around and wrote about it in the Washington Post. A shameless plug. She's very much on the ball and very effective in talking about many of these issues. But who's Donald Trump going to have at his side? Is he going to have the sycophant, the really kind of creepy Marco Rubio, little Marco? Is he going to have Doug Burgum, the governor of that diverse state of North Dakota? Yes, the state with only 100,000 more people than the city of Washington, D.C. Yes, the guy who has signed multiple anti-trans bills, an abortion bill that bans virtually all abortions. Going to have him at his side? That's the guy who is only, frankly, a few years younger than Donald Trump? Or is he going to have the crackpot J.D. Vance who spews Putin propaganda? So simply because the debate seems to be a win for one side or the other, and I find it absolutely inconceivable that Trump should win the debate other than with those who are already in his corner. A lot is going to happen between that debate and the election, and things will change. And I know this is hard to believe because all of you hang on every day's news, every hour of news. But there are millions of people who do not pay attention. They are only dimly aware of events. They don't know that he was an adjudicated rapist. By the way, Trump should hear that directly from Biden during the debate. They don't know that he has been fined hundreds of millions of dollars for faking the value of his properties. There are many things they don't know. And slowly, some of them will learn about it. Some of them won't bother to vote, but many of them will. And many of them, come the fall, will begin to pay attention, and they will learn all kinds of shocking things. Yes, they will learn, if not at the debate, then later on, that Donald Trump promised to do something about guns, but now brags that he did nothing. He is the NRA's best friend. So, as he put it, families and survivors of these horrendous incidents should just get over it. That's who the president is going to be running against. So think of Thursday as the beginning of the middle of the end. It's not the end. That's going to come in September, October, when people really have zeroed in. We're past the initial stages of the campaign. The president, I think, has debunked a lot of the whiners and the complainers on the Democratic side and showed he really is a competent individual, both to run the country and run his own campaign. So we're somewhere in the middle-ish of things. And I think we'll learn something from the debates. It won't be decisive, but we will learn something. And afterwards, if there's some really good moments, you can bet they're going to show up in ads. Maybe there'll be a viral moment or two that we can all get a kick out of. And believe me, Trump is filled with these viral moments. So get a bag of popcorn or a stiff drink, settle down in front of your set on Thursday night, maybe join some friends and watch the debate, because no one watching that who is not a deluded Trumpian will come away thinking Donald Trump is remotely fit to be president. That's what we're up against. This deluded, dangerous man is very close, months away from perhaps winning an election. And that is something, my friends, that free people here and around the globe should not allow to happen. And we're going to see a little bit of why we shouldn't let him anywhere near the Oval Office on Thursday night. So if you enjoyed this special program, if you enjoy our other programs, please tell your friends. They can listen and follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever they get their podcasts. Bye-bye.